everybody, and welcome back to the Wrestling Draft here on, the Wrestling Draft YouTube channel. If you're watching it on video, or if you prefer listening to it in the audio realm, it's wherever you get your podcasts at the moment. And I am your host, again, Scott McLeod. This is our first proper look at the weekly scores of the series. Explain that again for anybody who's new. Those of you who followed along when we were on Saturdays, we're probably thinking, why are you doing it this early at this stage? We've only got Raw, NXT, and AEW Dynamite to really talk about, but we're establishing that we're recording these now on a Thursday evening because for now, touch wood, it's the only bloody week of the night of the week that doesn't have a wrestling show on. I mean, it's got TNA, but right now we don't include TNA despite my many petitions. So
Wait till we get to the Listeners League on that one.
we're gonna record it on a Thursday, release it on visual and audio platforms on a Friday, and starting from next week, we'll also be able to have the previous week's SmackDown, AEW Collision, Raw, SmackDown, Raw, NXT, AEW Dynamite, and potentially any big PLEs that have been coming up because those are coming more frequent. And over the next couple of weekends, we do have some big PLEs coming up. Like I said, I'm your host again, Scott McLeod, and joining me, if you're watching this on the video version, his head looking particularly shiny in his setup right now. Please welcome Megamind himself. It's David Hockney.
Yeah, mega mind because I'm the only one that's using his brain whilst doing this draft analysis here. There's no point in me, just playing fiddle with, trying to rub people the wrong way or trying to beef them up at all. We just call it like it is, and that is big brain play right there. And also, my head is looking particularly shiny because I have needed a haircut because I am attending a black tie event this weekend. So, hence why
Not
I
everything
need
needs
to
a
be.
backstory, Dave. Not everything needs a bloody backstory.
I listen, just because it's been a while since you've done a black tie event, and they're always a consistent uh, event here at the West End Country Club.
See, I mean, moans when anyone implies that he's a Tory, and yet he comes out with patter like this. This is Tory patter coming out here. Me, the working man, will bring it to you as it is. Now, before we get into the actual scores so far after the first initial three shows of the week, now I want to address something that's been going on. It's been scuttlebutt on social media. It's been scuttlebutt and a big topic of discussion within the drafting group chat that we have among our contributors here. The sudden pulling of my captain from Raw this week, my captain being Naomi, the Women's World Heavyweight Champion. Now, and tonight, Thursday here in UK, as we were recording this, there was no official confirmation as to what exactly she was pulled for. There's a lot of rumor and innuendo about why it was. If it is the reason that I think I'm hearing it is, I'm going to say to Big Jim Uso to put little Jim Uso away and stop ruining my fucking draft right now. Just put something on the end of it, pal. But they were appearing on Seven Man's podcast. Everyone thought their big reveal was going to come there. Nothing has come out. So at the minute,
Yet.
I am believing nothing until she does a Becky Lynch and appears around and tells us that this is what it actually is. I am believing nothing, dear. I believe I was prematurely silled in our group chat by David Campbell. And if this isn't what we think it is and it turns out to be a red herring, I want that seller rescinded. That was a premature seller. If it does turn out to be what we think it is, and she does have to go away for a significant period of time, which we don't know yet, I will accept the seller, but I will not take the seller before we know anything that's going on. So that's what I'm saying. We know absolutely nothing. We know, and just the fact that it's been the topic of conversation within our group chat is annoying me when we know nothing about what's going on. And secondly of all, I mean, Dave's got his own beef with Annie Mitchell, a beef that he's starting on his own, and he's just kicking a man while he's down. But Andy Mitchell and I have something in common. At least we are taking risks in this bloody draft. Because if what's happening with Naomi is what we think is happening, she does have to go away with the season. You're not going to come see me on the show regretting my choices. I regret nothing about this team I've suggested so far. I regret nothing. And trust me, I regret picks in the past. Naomi, I do not regret because I think she was tremendously undervalued in terms of her selection last season. I think she was one of the best picks of last season, considering she won Money in the Bank, won the world title, won at SummerSlam, and everything that happened there. So I have no regrets about this pick, and I will adjust my captain appropriately. But Grant McRobbie, by the way, who needed AI to tell him that picking first meant Seth Rollins was the best pick. He needed AI to tell him that, and then picks the rest of the shitty picks on his team. He suddenly decided that I am his enemy right now. He's trying to make the season interesting for himself. Well, Grant, just to say, I will do for you this season what I had to do for 60 plus episodes of East Meets West when we did ESSR. That's make you fucking interesting. So go back to chatting to your wee AI bots and masturbating over anime, you fucking dweeb.
Wow. I think that's the first time you've actually grown a pair on this show and actually called someone out. So I,
You really haven't
yeah,
been paying attention to our past history, have you? I've said more things than that, but he brought it out to me.
I'll
He
bet.
started poking at me, and eventually I'm going to talk back about it.
Mm. Well, you know what? Join the club. I think, somebody takes a swing at you, you've got to take a swing back.
People don't think we do long-term storylines on this draft analysis show, but give it to the end of the season, there'll be a tag match. It'll be me and Andy versus Stephen. Grant, you wait and see what happens there. The tag match you didn't ask for, but you're fucking getting anyway. It's a good day anything to tell you that you can follow us on social media on Twitter, Facebook. You can also get us wherever you get your podcasts from. Just like reading, reviewing your chosen audio platform. Also, subscribe to the YouTube channel for this video version, and you can see the shininess of Dave's head in 4K. But all that out the way, Dave, this isn't going to be as long as last week's show. I mean, it feels longer already after I had to go on that. But I thought I had to get
Yeah,
out
it
and
does.
acknowledge the Naomi shaped, elephant in the room here. The controversy about it because it was a shame that she was pulled. But until I'm told any reason why she can't be either on Clash or anything else going forward, I believe nothing about what I'm hearing online.
Mm. Yeah, well, we'll just have to wait and see, I guess.
I'm just happy that Edge or Cope, whatever you want to call him,
Edge.
was competing on AEW this
We
week
call
with
him
Matthews.
Edge. We do not call him Cope.
Dave, are you ready to get into the top three scorers of the
Let's
week?
do
And
it.
we'll get
Yeah.
into the proper analysis.
Took us
So,
about 5 or 6 minutes to get there, but yeah, let's go straight into it.
well, I was going on about how I took a risk with Naomi and I had to address the fact she wasn't on Raw this weekend, all the rumors. But yes, the top three scorers of the week, a tie for 5 points. Actually, there are several people tied for five, but the top two are LA
Way too
Knight,
many.
yeah, and
Yeah.
Moxley. Moxley competing on Dynamite this week, setting up the big cage match, and also your appearance points in a backstage interview. LA Knight appearing on Raw, setting up the big four-way match for Clash and Parasoles in a World Title program. Hobbs and Shibata proving to be a slightly better choice for Tom Brock. They're also on 5 points because they had a trios match victory with Samoa Joe returning this week. Also, Dominic Mysterio and Scrap Daddy Adam Pearce as well. CM Punk also all on 5 points. So fairly early on, but it's interesting to see who's all coming out right out the gate in terms of the points.
Hmm. Yeah, it's like 5 points straight away. You wouldn't expect anything less from the first week. There's going to be people making their first appearances. People might chalk up a win here and there, but it seems to be quite AEW heavy in terms of, match points here and there. But let's not take anything away from like LA Knight and CM Punk also getting a tag team win by disqualification. And I think what I seem to have noticed is there seems to be a lot more DQ wins happening on TV quite a lot, particularly when the heel stable or heel team is uh, is dwindling a little bit. So it does make me wonder, are we going to see more DQ wins going ahead, just for the purposes of carrying on TV and storyline purposes. So I think that could be the case here, but I'll reserve judgment for maybe like a later show.
Yeah, I think the matches. We look at the people who are here. I think other than Adam Pearce, me purely for appearance points alone, he's on here. So it's slightly surprising to see him in this mix so soon.
Yeah,
Everybody else, I would expect to be here. But then overall top of this week is Becky Lynch, even though it wasn't even a title match with 6 points, the women's Intercontinental Champion with an easy win this week. I think,
over
again, not a
Maxine.
surprise. The captaincy on for Gary Kernahan there,
Yeah.
leading into a potential match with Nikki Bella coming up, which is again spell a foregone conclusion there.
I
Potentially
mean,
at
it's Gary's off
ringside
to a
Clash in
flyer with
Paris.
that as well. Getting I mean, they might as well have just given her the points at that point. I mean, there was no realistic way that I think Becky was going to drop the title to Maxine. But then again, Stephanie Vaquer did drop the NXT Women's title to JC Jane, so we have seen some mad things before in the past.
Anything can happen in the World Wrestling Federation.
Hmm.
Very few people, weirdly, with the exception of the people on SmackDown, aren't on are all on 0 points, but everybody else is at least on 1 point, like your Balor, McDonald's, and everybody, and Bailey all scoring 1 point. But coming out the gates, especially when you're a champion and you're the captain, Becky Lynch, again, not a surprise. And she was picked very highly and has been ever since her comeback. But we'll go into the actual leaderboard now and see where that stands this early on. Obviously, everything will change in the next week or so as we build further towards Forbidden Door and NXT Heatwave, both happening a week on Sunday. Gary Morris, I've forgotten everybody's team names by the way, so I'll come back with those.
Mm,
But Gary Morris is on 4 points right at the bottom, and then ahead of him, both tied for 5 points, is Alan McLucas and Grant McRobbie. Could it be Grant? David, you and your old pal Robert Fuckingshaw are both
yep.
on 7 points. We both then have a three-way tie for 8 points, uh, with Andy Mitchell, JP, and myself all on 8 points.
Mm,
For 10 points is Tom Brock, and we have Dan Axel Jameson on 12 points, as is the GOAT David Campbell. Gary Kernahan moved up to the top three thanks to that Becky Lynch performance. He
mm,
is number three overall with 13 points. But then there's a two-way tie at the top with the Vibes man himself, Matt Smith, and Stephen Wilson,
uh,
16 points. Like I said, I want to be seeing people taking risks here. I'm hoping some of these picks that we may have been looking down on last week pay off because people not taking risks is the reason why the last season under bloody ESSR was won by a team, including Stephen Wilson. And the lack of risk is probably why Stephen Wilson is winning so early on. I cannot have that man who makes the rules and makes the scoring so highly.
oh, he was last season's winner. Now he's already kicking off the new season with position right at the top. You can't make that sort of stuff up. And I need to have a word with him about the whole uh, system that he's got set up here to allow us to share these results with our wonderful audience. Is that our team names in the Premier League haven't been included in the results table, and yet the subpar league, the conference league of this draft does have their team names attached to it. So, Stephen, if you're listening, get that update involved in the Premier League table team.
Mhm. Yeah, we were trying some new systems here where it sounds displaying. It's good in terms of looking at the layout, people's picks, and individual teams, both in the main league and the listeners league. But yeah, it's weird that our team names aren't included here. But honestly, as much as it's easy to take shots at Stephen Wilson, it's fun too. But it's the fact that
Always.
that he's on the top so early on, and he won last season. Now you look at his team, he does have your Rhea Ripley's, your CM Punk's, LA, well, he had CM Punk and LA, you mentioned the
Yeah.
disqualification win, so that does probably help him. Rhea Ripley, I don't think she did anything really major on Raw, but she is his captain, so any appearance is good. Plus, Marina Shafir appearing with the Death Riders a couple of times
Mhm.
before Dynamite, so that's probably what's helped them, coming out of the
Although,
gate. But I should mention, even though we're doing it earlier than we usually would do, the first week of scores isn't necessarily any indication as to where the season's going to go. But it
no.
is an interesting look to see in the first few days, right out the gate, who's fired. And really, when we looked at all these people scored on five, and then Becky Lynch is a wee bit ahead of them, it's all the usual suspects for the most part.
Yeah, but that CM Punk LA Knight tag team win may have got him a good start off the board. But both those guys are going to be in the fatal four way for the World Heavyweight title at Clash in Paris. So I think those picks are going to come back to bite him a little bit because that'll be two title losses on PLE. But thankfully, one of them is not his captain at this point. So he might start to dip down the table in a couple
Well,
of
the
weeks'
minute
time.
At the minute, neither of them are East captain, and then also it's annoying for me because Jey Uso decided he's on my team decided to get involved in that as well, so
Mm,
he's going to lose that as well. I know, but also we should mention we've talked about like pins and we mentioned wins and how people are getting to where they are. If you want a full picture as to what constitutes the highest points, the lowest amount of points, how many points you lose for a loss on the DV title or non-title, there's a helpful video being posted to our social media channels
yep.
telling you all about that.
Check
So
on
go check
YouTube
that
if
out.
you want to get a better idea of the scoring behind
Mhm.
the draft here.
It's very helpful. Also, additional like big gimmick matches, sometimes like Royal Rumble or Elimination Chamber, also factor into that they like make things a little interesting. But we'll talk about that when we get to a Rumble or Chamber season. Also, Money in the Bank is a big help as well sometimes. But we should all mention that it's not mentioned in there, but in the occasion that it happens, in the future, any gauntlet matches are all scored as individual matches. So if you have a pick who runs the gauntlet, that's multiple actual match wins, and it's really helped. I think it helped you and I because I had Bailey and you had Lara Valkyria in separate teams on the Road to Mania season, and when they ran that gauntlet, that helped them out as well. But we've mentioned the listener league a few times, Dave. The top five of the listeners league come out of the gate because they've got a chance to pick from our pool of picks, as
Mm-hmm.
that is the way they select. So, like I said, there's not really much to gauge from this week because there's only three shows to talk about. But it will be interesting to see who the top picks among the listeners league have been like in each round. But tell me who's like doing well this early on for the listeners league.
So for the listeners league this week, our top five is well, actually, we have a tie for fifth place so far. So both on 15 points, we have Jonathan Napier with still not over these Slim Jim tables, and Adam Kayla with Paul Hay EW2 Electric Boogaloo. 15 points apiece. Fourth place is Stuart Cowie, Charlie Haas's Angels on 16. Andy Springer in third place with 18 points. Ryan Dalglish, the former Tangerine Dream, with funnily enough, his team name is Tangerine Dreaming of UECL Success on 19 points. But our top scorer of the week is Lee McAteer with Mac Attack, who is sitting on 24 points, a good bit above what the rest of the Premier League is doing at the minute. But just to give an idea of what his team is like, Dominic Mysterio is his top scorer, 9 points this week with the captaincy applied, so 4.5 with the tag team win plus a few appearance points in between. And his other team consists of Chelsea Green, Ava Rain, both made notable appearances on NXT. And he also has, believe it or not, El Grande Americano, the German one, that is, and Hank and Tank as his tag team, and then rounding it off with Paul Heyman from his round one selection. So yeah, it's been a very good week for Lee's team. I think he's got a very solid team on paper, mostly NXT heavy, but yeah, excellent start picking Dominic and putting the captaincy on him, getting that win with El Grande Americano by his side. But I just
You
wanted to
notice,
shoot
you
through some
notice
of
that
the.
the ability there to pick and choose from each pool, like each round there. The lowest scoring, the top five there are both tied for one less point more than who the top two at our current table are, who because our
Mm,
top two, Matt and Stephen, are tied at 16. The bottom of the list, the top five is 15. I should mention, you mentioned Dominic Mysterio, that is who Matt Smith's captain is. So that explains why Matt Smith is even at the minute
yeah,
with Stephen Wilson. We should have mentioned that.
yeah, Matt Smith, Dominic Mysterio, 9 points. Hank and Tank and Chelsea Green, as previously mentioned, also carrying him with an extra 3 points. That additional point getting him to 16 was from Swerve Strickland, who appeared on Dynamite this past week. But just to shoot through a few of the new listeners league teams that we have, I'm just going to do some names and team names here. I won't dive into the specific picks unless they start racking up points. So a few that have caught my attention. We have Jordan with McIntyre Loyal. You and us, you and the rest of us there, Jordan. We have Golden Brady with the Oba Feminists, which is probably my favorite so far. Then we have Stacey Love, the Bone Breakers, Alan Skinner, Pillow Fight Professionals, Ronan Monday Night Rondo. Jack Graham is in the Listeners League, former SDL host, here for no particular reason. That's his team name, just to be clear. Uh, Ross McCluskey with Hiroshi Tanahashi Brownie. I
For
mean, I thought
God's
Oba
sake.
Femis was good, but I think that one takes the brownie in this instance. Eve Jameson with the Wrestler Machine, Paddy McBride, Devil's Kiss, Elliot Cantor, the Final Boss, David Jindoyan back with Big Meaty Men Slapping Meat, Kieran Bryce, the Dream Team, Michael Cloutier, Let's Just See What Happens FC, Anthony Patrick, include Impact Points 2.0. Now, that was brought up at the start of the show. Anthony Fitzpatrick still in that campaign to include TNA Impact Points. But tell you what, when I had Trick Williams in the last season, I think that I would have agreed with you, but this time, not so much. Uh, the One of the day one issuers for the Listeners League, Alan Laurie, Draft Balls 3, The Search for Draft Balls 2, John Sly, Sammy for the Rumble, Ross Brady, the Big Ross Man, Ross Henderson, Freddie Prinze Jr. deserves more credit. He does, actually. Fair play to him. Uh, then we have the Dallas Cowboys with Sam. Then at last we have Tam McKinley, the big boss Tam. So quite a good mix of names here. The others I didn't mention because I thought they just seemed a bit too lazy or, you know, just didn't seem worthy of a mention. So if you are competing in the listeners league, the more creative your team name is, the more likely you will get a shout out on this show. But I think for this league so far, I think it's between Oba Feminists and Hiroshi Tanahashi Brownie.
The sorry if it doesn't seem like I was paying attention on the video version. I was just going through some of the picks. I'm trying to spot some of the reoccurring people. The weird way this new system is that the at the bottom of the list is the never round one pick and it goes upward. So after the day I've been wondering why is that person picked last, and then realized it's a weird way the system is. So I'm seeing Cody Rhodes pick, and weirdly quite a few people for their tag team are going between either Fraxium from what I'm seeing and or a women's tag team, either of your pick of Charlotte and Bliss or the other big female tag pick being Roxanne Perez and Raquel Rodriguez. So a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people taking that strategy have two big female hitters in their tag team. So it is interesting to see who the listeners league like looking at on paper, who they're big. So there's quite a few people going for Cody, a few people for Seth Rollins.
Mm-hmm.
I think
As you
I
do.
can't see many obvious people. Jade Cargill seems to be quite popular among the female picks along the lower round.
Yeah, it's. I think you've got to go with who out of the round one seems to be picked the most often. But we can do a bit more insight as the season progresses, just in a bit more detail. But we're just introducing the listeners' league teams primarily and who's been doing well so far. So Lee McAteer, obviously, straight off the bat, might be worth giving Ryan Dalglish a bit of a shout out because he's had the experience. He's running rampant with Becky Lynch at the minute,
Hmm.
probably with his team captain, and he's also done the GOAT approach and taken Dax Hardwood and Cash Wheeler as individual picks for FTR. But he's also chosen Raquel Roxanne as his tag team. He's got Paul Heyman from round two, and finally Lash Legend as well, who unfortunately lost to Nia Jax on NXT, but I think probably one of the stronger picks I think he could have chosen. So I think Ryan's done pretty well with his selection as well. Jack Graham, let's give him a mention because he is one of the boys, but uh he unfortunately has chosen Roman Reigns for round six, and I think it's safe to say probably not the wisest decision. But Seth Rollins for his round one, and with the captaincy applied, I think
I'm
he's
seeing a
redeemed
lot
himself.
more. I'm seeing a lot more Seth Rollins than Cody Rhodes. Also, they were
Mm,
taking the one and two, like pick one and two overall respectively, and I can see why if you're in that position. But it seems like more people are going for Seth and this than they are Cody. I'm assuming that's more a case of like well, from what we're seeing on TV, there's more immediate storyline progression and reasons to see Seth on TV than there is Cody because I think there's not really from what we've seen from last week's match, any clear directions to where Cody's going for his next defense. A lot of the rumors are that it's him versus Drew McIntyre in
mm-hmm.
Paris potentially. Should be interesting to see. But Seth is one of the names I'm seeing more. Quite a lot of love for Scrap Daddy still among the listeners league from what I'm
Yeah,
seeing,
I
but
think you
not
can't
as
go wrong with
many.
Scrap Daddy. I mean, he has five TV appearance points already, and we know how much appearance points can actually carry a team, especially if it's a round five or round six selection.
And then you mentioned like success some people were having with Becky Lynch. And yet I'm not seeing Becky appearing nearly as much as I thought she would be, given obviously our Intercontinental title reign. If it wasn't going to be Lara, then I think it's going to continue for a good while. So Becky as a top like singles pick in the women's division, not being picked as much as say as a Tiffany Stratton or a Jade Cargill, from what I'm immediately seeing from the way the system's laid out on my device here, which is weird because like I can see the logic in picking Seth. I'm curious as to why Becky may not have been picked. I'm wondering if that was a mistake on some of our competitors' part.
Mm, maybe, but it's the TV title wins speak for themselves. The trios
Hmm.
titles obviously making waves here straight off the bat, and I think Hobbs and Shibata. While I was a bit skeptical of that choice at first, given the status of Samoa Joe, I think that's proved to be a fruitful selection for sure.
Yeah, it was very interesting, especially I don't know if we mentioned last week the fact that there was no announcement or any decision regarding the trios championships.
Mm,
I think it probably was because we've seen Samoa Joe popping up in shows like Twisted Metal on I think it's Paramount Plus or wherever it is.
mm-hmm.
So I think he was off filming some stuff for that, and he's only going to be gone for a couple of weeks, but he is back now. So it seems that that pick may be paying dividends. But when we come back next week, we'll have also SmackDown, Collision, then the next 3 weeks of shows Raw, NXT, and AEW Dynamite. Now, those shows, Dynamite and NXT, will be interesting, particularly because that'll be the go home shows for I'll be going show for NXT Heatwave, which is on Sunday, but also Dynamite. You and I will have a different perspective for the Go Home Dynamite episode and the matches set
Mhm.
up for Indoor there, because you and I, among several other people on the podcast, will
Yep.
be there in the Hydro live to see AEW Dynamite, and we will also
And
get to see
Collision.
we'll also get to see the Collision tapings. So just to let you know, but when you tune in, there may be some Collision spoilers next week when you tune back in. But that will give us an idea when we come back here to talk about what the matches will be at Forbidden Door, who we can talk about in terms of who's going to gain points. I think they have already announced several matches. They've announced Cope and Christian Cage
Edge
against
and
Nick Wayne,
Christian.
Nick Wayne and Kit Sabian. Hiromu Takahashi will take on Kyle Fletcher as a big 5-on-5 steel cage match. And some other matches still to come. Athena versus Tony Storm, MJF versus Hangman Page has been announced as well. The only match I've seen properly actually announced for the Dynamite from what I've seen that we're going to see in Glasgow is a tag match between Tony Storm and Alex Windsor versus Athena and Mercedes Moné. So that'll be a great match to see. I
Oh,
wouldn't be
I
surprised to
think
see that
it's
at the main event.
yeah, that's certainly gonna be timeless.
Yeah. Uh, Tony Storm in the sweet images. I hope you're wearing something under your kilt. Yeah,
Oh, I tell
there
you
we
what,
go.
if she gets to cut a promo in front of the Scottish crowd, either before or after tapings, like I'm just gonna enjoy every second of it because she is a delight to watch as this character.
It's gonna be mildly disappointing when you watch her entrance and you realize it doesn't actually come out in black and white. Like I remember when
Yeah.
I went to see a house show in 2022 and Karrion Cross came out and like the black and white really makes his entrance. Otherwise, it's just a guy walking to the ring.
Mm. And like John Morrison's live entrance isn't actually in
Hmm.
slow motion.
Yeah, like that. So yeah, I will be having a live perspective from that. We'll talk about both big shows coming out, and then we'll be back the following to talk about the fallout,
Well,
how those shows impacted the show up, impacted the league, and then be going into Clash and Power. So by the end of August, we'll see a major shake-up, and now we'll be able to see separating the men from the boys. We'll see where the season may actually be going. Will Sylvian Wilson be toppled from his food perch? Will I be able to step over Kermit Robbie and his AI bollocks? Who knows? Time will tell. Will Mr. Iguana show up and suddenly score Matt Smith 20 fucking points? I don't know. Only time will tell. You guys will tune in next time, same draft time, same draft channel. But until then, I have been Scott Cloud. That is David talking. Thank you for tuning in to this opening to the season. We'll talk about AEW Glasgow and the Road to Heatwave next week. See you.
yep. See ya.